What's up? I'm Omani Nagi, and welcome to the SEER site, a site for seers. Just sit back, relax, and let's see. Hello, and welcome to this first episode of the SEER site podcast. My name is Omani Nagi, and let's get right into it. So I am a seer, and I have been a seer since day one. And I wanted to share my decades-long journey of how I came into the realization that I am a seer, particularly with the background that I come from, and how sight showed itself to me through dreams and visions, through the eyes of other people, through various cultures, through just various means, how this journey unfolded, and how it's made a difference in my life. I mean, to the point where it's literally saved my life, and just want to share how sight has a purpose in our individual lives and also in the lives of others. But more importantly, why it's never too late for you to step into your ability to see. I'm under the impression that everybody has the ability to see in some way, shape, or form, some more than others. It's not a contest or anything. So I want to start a podcast focused on seeing, particularly in a society where seeing isn't cherished anymore, though it has come from all cultures and from all tribes. So I'd like to start this first episode about my becoming and how I stepped into this. So when I was 7 years old, I was watching a movie with my dad and my 5-year-old brother. And in the movie, a mother is having a baby, and the dad is outside, pacing back and forth, nervous. The movie is called Roots, and I don't know where it is in the movie, but so the mom has the baby, the dad runs in there, picks up the baby, and good. I turned to my dad and said, "Daddy, why weren't you there when I was born?" Man, I'm only 7. He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Why weren't you there when I was born? Like that guy was." So he's got this strange look on his face. He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, you weren't there. Why not?" And so this look on his face, I'm thinking, I'm in trouble. And so he's like, "How you know?" I said, "Well, there's only mommy, those 2 ladies, and this guy." He goes, "Did your mom tell you that?" I'm like, "No." So my dad kind of, calls for my mom, Mary. And so she comes in there and she's like, "What's going on?" And has her hands on her hips. I know I'm in trouble, right? And so my dad looks at me and says, "Tell your mom what you just told me." And I was like, I asked Daddy why he wasn't there when I was born. And she said, "What do you mean? Where was Daddy when I was born? He wasn't there." Like the guy in the movie who was there when his kid was born. She's like, "How do you know? I've never told you about this." I said, "Well, there was you, these 2 ladies, there was a guy." She goes, "We've never talked about this." I'm like, "No, but I was there." She goes, There's no way. There's no way you're supposed to remember that." I'm thinking, why? I was there. She goes, "What do you mean that you were there? What do you remember?" And so I described a lady coming through a door, another lady, and this guy. I told my mom where the door was, where the lights on the ceiling were. And now she's got this look on her face. And she's like, "You are not supposed to know that." I'm like, Why? Because now I'm in trouble. And so she just says, you're just not. And so this was the first time my mom shared my birth story with me. And so she said that the doctor that was with that delivered me was an Italian man, that he was white with black curly hair and bright blue eyes. And so she said when she had me after her 17 hours of labor, which, yeah, that's the mom's best weapon, that labor then. My brother's 24 hours, so I won on that one. So she said after she had me, she thinks she passed out. But that when she woke up, the doctor was handing me to her. And so she said she looked at me and said to the doctor, "Your baby is so beautiful." To which she said, the doctor said, "No, Mary, this is your baby." So my mom didn't even know me. And so I'm like, "Why?" She goes, "Because you had this black curly hair, you were really light, and you had these bright blue eyes that were looking right at me. And even the doctors and the nurses, the two nurses, commented that your eyes were already opened when he handed you to me." And so she confirmed what the room looked like that I described. And so she's like, "What else do you remember?" And so I told them, I said, "Well, before I was in that room, I was like in this tunnel, and I used to play on these concrete tubes at the elementary school I went to at the time." And so I told them, I said, "It's like those tubes, but it was like dark, but it was glowing. And then I saw that the lights on the ceiling, and then, the rest is the rest." And so both my parents are just, they have this look. So my mom is saying, this is impossible for you to remember. So she said, "What else do you remember?" So beside me was a picture of me as a baby. I was born in 1969. And so when I was first born, pictures were still in black and white. So there was this black and white picture of me. And so I looked around and said, "Well, I remember when Uncle such and such took this picture." She's like, "There's no way you're only 3 months." So even though the picture's in black and white, it had something over my head. And so I described how she put this quilt over my head. I was laying on the couch. I gave her the color of the couch, the texture of the couch, where the guy with the light was, which ended up being the photographer from Olin Mills, and where she was standing trying to get me to look. And I described the whole thing. And her hands are in hips, and she's just, "You're not supposed to remember these things." And so I said all that to say this. Apparently, I have been a seer since day one. I didn't know that I was. I didn't know that this was quote unquote different. I just thought everybody saw things the same. I've always seen in these things that I'm going to share with you. And my background, however, was, particularly my religious background, was one of the larger deterrents to this path. And so, as a kid, I saw things, I felt things that apparently other people didn't see. I felt them, I knew things that I wasn't supposed to know. I would say things, and my mom or her friends would look at me like, "How do you know?" I don't know. But at the same time, I'll be on the real, I learned to hide it. I learned to shut that in. I had to survive because, people look at you weird, or, when you share things, particularly when you're doing it at school, particularly when you're doing it in a church or around people with a particular belief or mindset. We're going to definitely get to that. And it wasn't until much later, let me give you a brief background. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. And as a young teenager, I moved to San Diego, California. And that's going to be very important. But I was born and raised very Christian. Very Christian. Holy rolling, tongue talking, running through the aisles, church multiple times a week type Christian in the Pentecostal / apostolic movement. My dad's a minister still. And he was also a professional gospel singer with this group called the Apostolic Clips. And so I would travel to different states in the country, different churches and organizations for them to sing at these other type Pentecostal churches for the most part. They sang in other churches, but mostly Pentecostal. And so this is how I was raised. Very, very, very. All there was in our house was kind of church. Kids will be kids, but, to the point that I always wanted to be a preacher / missionary, do something for God, preach the word and things like that. I went to my organization's Bible college and graduated salutatorian. Did a little bit of missionary work, preaching in the Philippines, loved the Philippines, even smuggled Bibles to a particular communist country at the threat of arrest and imprisonment. And that was while I was a deputy sheriff. So we're going to get in, but all this is part of the soil that I had to sprout from to accept what I am today. And so I say all that to say that I was born and raised very religious, but I'm also one that I'm a Taurus, so I'm stubborn. I ask a lot of questions. And if you ain't got the answers, I'm going to find them. And it was those questions that started this journey. Now, when I say I was born and raised in the Pentecostal type format, I was raised in 3 different organizations, and this is important. So the first was the PAW, Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, or what we called at the time, back in the 70s, 80s, Black Church. Then after moving, later, we went to the UPC, or United Pentecostal Church, which was known as the White Church. And it's not because it was only white people there or black people here, but the organization was set up by those. And there's a reason why. And this is part of the reason that helped me to start peeling this journey as an onion. So Black Church or Black organization, white organization, would do it like that. But I always hung around the Apostolic Assemblies, or which was a Latino church. And they had Latinos from everywhere, mostly Mexico, being in Southern California, but Puerto Rico, Cuba, Peru. I've met so many people, and you're going to hear about them. You're going to hear about these cultures, these people, because, particularly with what we're going through right now, these cultures have enriched me so much that I got to give them honorable mention. And many peoples, many cultures have literally been light posts on this path to self-realization. And that's what I want this podcast to be, is for you to see yourself. A lot of us have had to hide behind these cloaks, particularly those of us in religion. And we've had to hide. And some of you have come out of hiding a long time ago. Some are new to the journey. Come out wherever you are. It's time, man. It is time, particularly in the atmosphere we're in. It's time for the seers to emerge again. So yeah, at some point I just said, screw it. This is real at some point. And I'll tell you how it became real when we get to that. So, because this podcast is not about my sight and just my journey. It is really, I want to be a mirror so that you can see yourself. Because I see seers. I see, part of my ability is to see the medicine in people. It sucks. And I'll be honest. I'm not saying being a seer sucks. Sometimes it does. It can be a curse. It can be a blessing, depending on how you view it or your current experience. But we'll go over that. But stop pretending. Finally said, screw it. Yeah, I'm something's going on here. And once I started to admit it, it did not take overnight. It took years. I mean, I'm 56 and I'm finally sharing this. And on the real, it was never my intention to share this with anybody. Yeah, there were times in my life where I would read people, but this, I've always been the shy type, an introvert. Not with everybody, but for the most part, I'm shy and I'm introverted. So this was not my intention. But when you have spirit guides bugging you all the time, and the noise gets louder and louder, I just want to share what I've been through to help you emerge from your cocoons. But part of emerging from your cocoon is going into the cocoon, and this journey is part of that. Some of the things that I've been through, and seers of other sorts have been through. Just to let you know, this stuff is real, it's natural, and it's necessary. And once I got into admitting, I'm 56 now, I can admit I am empathic. And it's okay to be empathic. I have visions of the past, present, and future, particularly of past lives. Access to the Akashic Library and soul scrolls. And mind you, I had no frame of reference to any of this type of stuff. Akashic Library, what is that? Soul scrolls, what is that? Believe me, or don't believe, it involves you. It's all about you. So, I've been given access to that, or somehow have access to that. Dream interpretation. I'm able to interpret dreams, talk and see spirit guides and ancestors. And I'll even share how I met it. You might call it an alien, I call it an interdimensional being or a watcher. And not only how I met him, and I know that shit sounds crazy, right? But we're getting to that. But not only how I met him, but his name, what he shared, and how it literally changed everything about how I see life. And I want to share a lot of the visions I've been given from these experiences. I'm a scryer. We'll talk about scrying. And so, this journey has taken me from preaching Jesus in the pulpit to doing ayahuasca in the Amazon jungle. It's been a journey. And so this podcast is born from that journey. One I never intended to share, but I wanted it to be a sacred space for those who see, who sense, who feel. And it's been caged, or you've silenced yourself. Those who sense that there is something deeper, and oh my God, there is. You would be surprised how badass you really are, and how our society has cloaked that for many of us, particularly those through the education system or education system, or through religion, or through other doctrines, dogmas, politics, whatever. It's time to remove those scales from our eyes, both our physical eyes and our third eye. But also a space for truth. I'm not going to hide anything. I'm not here to put any religion down, but I'm not going to sit here and bullshit about anything either. I have to keep it real. Part of that background is I was a deputy sheriff for 16 years, so I had to keep it real with people. Let alone being raised in the hood. I've been in a lot of fights. So, I hear a lot of people say empathic men are weak. Yeah, I have had some knockdown dragouts with some of the baddest of them, man. And I've shaken hands with most of them after it was done. Convicted murderers, where we've had to do a one-on-one and then shook hands afterwards. So no, being empathic, being sensitive, It ain't weak. In fact, it takes a strong man to be empathic. It takes a strong man to, a strong person, particularly in a society. Now, I know I'm saying men because we're the ones who have to hide it most. And it comes more naturally to women. Oh my God, the things that I've been shown about women has been just life-changing, particularly for one, born and raised in religion. And when I was a minister, I used to teach new life and discipleship to the new converts, and how the man was over the woman, and, protecting the woman. There's God, the umbrella, then the man, then the woman, then the children. I used to teach this bullshit. But that's not how it is in the spirit world. So we're going to get into some real life shit that I would hope just empowers you. It's time we're empowered, regardless of your race, your culture, whatever. But I also want it to be a place of non-judgment. I've seen too much judgment. I see it every day. I've seen it every day. Ministering in the church and being a deputy sheriff in the courts, there's more judgment in the place where it's taught there should be none than there is in the place where it is the rule. More judgment in religion than there is in the courts I've worked. And so I wanted this place to be a place of non-judgment. Respect everybody's journey is how I look at it. I view everybody as a teacher. I've had teachers who are 18 years old. I'm 56. I've had teachers who are 18 years old. I've had teachers who are in their 90s. And without them, I wouldn't be here. And I'm not here to teach you anything. Let me tell you what this podcast is not. I'm not here. This is going to be the who, what, when, where, and the whys of seeing. And the how, not the how to see, but how do see. How do seers see? I cannot teach you how to be a seer. It's just something that's come natural. So I'll be honest, I don't have all the answers. And beware of those who tell you they have all the answers. That's how you know someone's a fool. When they tell you they've got all the answers. That is the fool you must run from. Just remember, this stuff it's natural, it's normal. And we've hidden from it for so long. And it's not about how to see, but it's more about presence and perceptions, purpose, and some practices. I'm not going to teach you how to see, but I will give you some of the exercises that I use that help me gain clarity, particularly from somebody who's come from a very loud life, in the way that I was raised and everything, and places I was raised, and the jobs and the things I've had to do and the things I've seen. It's been a lot of noise. There are exercises that are easily accessible. In fact, at the end of this episode, I will give you an exercise that is so easy and so empowering, yet so challenging, that it is the one thing that helped me, that started the empowerment. Empowerment is like a muscle. Awakening is like, you don't go to the gym one day and then come out all buff and stuff. You got to work at it. I had to work at it. Some people bulk up quicker than others. Me, I'm a Taurus. I'm stubborn. It doesn't work that way. But I'm also be honest with you and say, this ain't going to be no fairy tale. I'm not here to give you the love and light version of my life or of this journey. But we're going to go down a rabbit hole, and it's deep. We're going to peel it back like an onion, but I want to take you carefully into these waters so that you don't drown. I use this analogy. When I was a kid in Columbus, Ohio, young, my parents took us to a man-made beach that you could see the other side of. And when, go in that dirty water, open up your eyes in this green, murky water. Moved to San Diego. Went to the beach for this first time. Was like, oh, hell no. And Dad's like, going to get into it. Nope. And then you start putting your toe into it. Pretty soon, I'm at the beach 3 times a week, 2-3 times a week, bodyboarding with the homies and everything. And from that, I got into snorkeling, and then went out and got my PADI certification in scuba diving. That didn't last long, don't worry, but I want to take you out so you're not just drowning, because the things I've seen, they are very deep waters. And I for those who this may be strange to, and who are just coming out of their cages and coming out of their closets, let's tread lightly and carefully, but I'm going to keep it real. You know, this journey has taken me to meet a lot of people, cultures, languages, countries, beliefs, just a lot of people. And so throughout, I'm going to give my honorable mention to this. I'm going to mention almost every race of every person, sex of every person that has helped me on this path, male, female, two-spirit. So I'm going to come at you more in a tribal way. And when I say that is, we have been forced to think in lines, a timeline. My mentality doesn't work like that. It works in a circle. We all dance in a circle. Nature is circular. All of our ancient wisdoms and cultures for every people is circular. We've all danced around the fire. And so that's all this is a dance. So I don't square dance. So I see everything circular. And so we're going to be using a lot of vernacular that may not be familiar, but I will explain it in terminology and try and make it very easy. I'm not saying dumb it down or anything, but I think very ancient, but want to bring it into, the ancient things they share with me. I want to bring it into how it fits in today, because we're about to go through some things, some real shit we're about to go through. And we got to ask ourselves, why did we choose to be born in this period? And what can we do about it? We need hope again. So that's what this is all about. And, in our next episode, we're going to explore, are you a seer? I've told you I'm a seer and everything. We're going to explore, are you a seer? What does it mean to be a seer? What is it? Who is it? How is it? Why is it? All this, we'll get into that. And then we'll get into the different gifts and the different types of sight, being empathic and dreams and auras and energies and reincarnation. That's one of my favorite subjects. The ancient texts, the scriptures, particularly the Bible, and how the Bible is more than what we thought it was. I used to, when I got out of religion, I thought, the Bible is a lie. And I had to make a full circle after thinking it was truth and then lie. It's only been misinterpreted. It's been used as a sword to cut us to pieces. But I've been shown a different way. And we're going to get into it, whether you believe and all that stuff or not. And this ain't a religious shit. I ain't about that. But there's some ancient secrets and mysticism. I'm not even saying they're secrets. There's some things there people just didn't want to see. But we're going to get into all that. And so I give you this exercise before the next episode. At some point, when you can, look into a mirror, naked, and just look at yourself in your eyes and tell yourself, I love you. Just try it. It was very hard for me in the beginning, but it's a process. So just simply ask yourself or tell yourself in the mirror, I love you. And that might be the seed that starts to sprout, that seer that's inside you. So until then, think deeply, see clearly, and journey well. I love you.